There we go.
And then I can send it out if there's SAP colleagues that missed the meeting that would care to listen to the call. So we'll get right into it again. Thank you for joining, everyone. My name is Lars. I'm the account executive here at Carbonite. Allow me to introduce several colleagues of mine that are on the call. Each plays a little bit of a different role. Eric Panic is also works with me on the sales side. I have Cristiano Luca and Murray White. They are on the pre-sales engineering team, and they are Migrate specialists. They are legacy double take employees with over 15 years of experience each. And then I included Derek Cheek, who is our director of professional services, who is also a legacy double take employee with over 15 years of tenure as well. And for large scale migrations, we generally do include some level of professional services engagement from our side. So I thought it would be appropriate to invite Derek. That rounds out the Carbonite team. And then we have Sherry Song is also listening in at SAP1.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Sherry. So I don't know who's running point or wants to kick it off on the SAP side, but VJ emailed me earlier this week and asked for some evaluation licenses for our migration software, which we're happy to furnish. We just have different licenses depending on the environment. So just want to make certain that we understand the scope of your project and what you're looking to accomplish. So I guess I'll kick it over to you. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you plan to use our migration tool for beyond just data center migration?
Yeah, Laris. So beyond the license, basically in this meeting, we are looking for how this tool is useful for us, maybe like a POC. Okay, so our requirements are from DB side. We have an ongoing project, which is the XIO migration. That means we want to migrate data within the drives. Okay, so we want to know how this tool can help us for migrating data which is actually linked to SQL Server at the first point, and we would like to use maybe the same for Linux with the MySQL product as well. And so we would like to know how can we use this product for this purpose. And the second thing is the whole server migration. So we have a Voices team here for that. So these are the main 2 points.
Okay. Well, it's an agent-based solution. It's pretty simple. Install the agent on the production server, install the agent on the target or the destination server. And it's asynchronous replication. So the software will copy everything from the source server over to the target server. It will also replicate changes as they're happening to that production server and send them across the wire. And that way, the target server is constantly kept in sync with the production server. The only downtime that you incur is when you cut over, which is about 10 to 15 minutes. There's quite a bit, more to it technically, but from, just a high level, that's kind of how the agent works and how it migrates the software. We support every single Windows operating system and almost all Linux operating systems. Are these servers standalone servers, or are they Microsoft clusters, or are they both?
Both, I think. And additional question, can it copy?
Yeah, we have both. We do have Microsoft clusters, and we do have standalone.
And are there physical servers along with virtual machines that you intend to migrate?
Yes. I mean, this migration will be like from legacy to, Azure.
So are you going from your data centers up into Microsoft Azure?
Yes.
And just roughly speaking, I know that you're a very large organization, but how many servers are in scope here? Start with the physical servers.
I'm not sure. I mean, if you take in general, we have around like only DB, we have around like 500 servers.
Yeah, but Laris, I think my manager, like the Vijay or someone, will come out with figures. But
Okay.
as of now, we would like to concentrate more on the technical part. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Murray, Cristiano, I don't know who of you guys want to drive, but if you guys just want to maybe share out a screen, open up the console, kind of give them a lot more than just a high level overview, and allow them to ask any questions that they have, and that way they gain a better understanding of how the tool actually, the agent migrates the data.
Okay, Cristiano here. I'm the sales engineer, and I can help you out with that. But before, I need to know what kind of windows you guys have, what kind of, if you are talking about clusters, if you have clusters, and if you are, what kind of connection you have to the Azure environment. You have a VPN, a direct express route. What kind of environment you have connecting your on-premise servers to the cloud servers?
So basically, at the first point, we need this migration between on-premises one, like which is our on-premises are converged cloud, basically. So we will talk about Azure later on. So the current requirement is moving off storage from normal SAN drives to NASR SAN drives to XIOs, and the underlying OS, as per my knowledge, it is Windows 2008 and 2012 we have as of now, and we have blades and VMs. So yeah, so beyond that, in the infrastructure level, I think Ashish and Vivek is here. So guys, will you please explain much on this?
Okay.
Yeah, we have express route between our on-premises to Azure.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to share with you my screen here. Okay, and from that screen, you'll be able to see what you have and how the tool works. Okay, so let me share here. Can you see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is the main console when you use for to orchestrate the migration job. Okay. When you talk about Azure, one more question I have for you: what kind of Azure you have there? It's not Azure Stack, is it? It is, or what kind of Azure you have on the target side?
No, Azure we have actually, it is a completely infrastructure. We are using IaaS.
Yeah, just to be more clear, like now we are asking about on-premises one, not Azure at this moment. Okay, so we want to know, suppose if we have a cluster on premises, we have our legacy data centers. So which was asked either Voices or DB team to do the XIO migration because of storage end of license. So we want to do a storage migration by using this tool. So we want to know how can we proceed with that.
So okay, that's good. So you're going to replicate only the data to the storage that you are going to migrate the servers itself, right? You are going to do the migration, provision the servers there, configure the application, and you want to just send over the data, right? So the database, correct?
Yes, at this moment.
Okay.
So
yes. So basically, you are doing a file server migration, it's a file level migration. Okay, so how it will work? Okay, first of all, you have to install the agents. Okay, you have to install an agent in the source server and an agent in the target server out after you create the servers. Okay, so you can do the installation of the agent using the push install. The push install is going directly from the console. Okay, the console is going to be pretty much install that for you if you want to. Okay, of course, there are some port requirements in terms of the connection from to the servers. Yeah, that's going to push the agent. However, you mentioned that you have an express route. That's not a problem. Theoretically, everything is going to be open through the servers, and you don't have major problems with that. Okay. So when you have a console, that's the main console. Okay, this is the console in order to orchestrate the migration itself. Okay, The console, you have to add the servers to the console here, just simple adding servers, okay? If you don't have the agent installed, okay, you can still add a server without any problem. All you have to do is click here to add the servers, add the server, okay? You're gonna have to have a local administrator of that's VM, okay? Or the physical server. However, you have to add a username and password here, okay? And you can add the server through the DNS name or the IP. And as soon as you have the server there, you're going to have an activity here like idle. The status of the server is going to be ready to have a job created. Okay, so the next step, select the source server. Okay, let's say here I have the source server here. Okay, I say migrate. Hold on a second, it's just querying the server. So you're going to see three options here. You're going to use the first option, okay? And the replication rules, you just open the drives you want to send over. Like let's say you have the drive G, drive E, drive F. You just select what you want to do. Select here, add rule, okay? And when you select here, add rule, we are going to just follow what you select to be sent over, okay? The next option is just select, the target server here, and the last option is just configure the job. So there are some job configurations here you have to do. Okay, most important here is the path mapping when you're going to send over the data. Okay, but all the options here are pretty straightforward, and our professional service team can be able to help you out with the final configurations here if you are interested. Okay, so after that, you just go here to the next, and we are going to pre-check. We are going to see if everything you did is right. Okay, and you just click and finish. Okay, when you click and finish, we are going to send the process. We're going to start the migration process. Remember that the process is a hot migration. Okay, everything you add to the source server is going to be replicated in the same time to the target server. Okay, but the process starts with a mirror. This mirror is pretty much a synchronization between the source server and the target server. Okay, the specific letters, the specific storage you decide to send over. Okay, so that's when you have to wait. Okay, that's why you have to wait. We go up to the data you have there. We go up to latency you have to connect to the Azure and or to the secondary server. Okay, so it's a process that can take hours or a couple of days. Okay. After completed, you are going to have only replication happening in between the source and target. So everything your customers will add to the source will be replicated to the target in the same time. Okay, we have a replication filter in the source server. Okay, and this replication filter is going to capture the I/O changes. Okay, and wait for a confirmation from this data being written to the disk. As soon as this data is written to the disk, we receive a knowledge from this data, and we replicate this data that's already there in the replication driver queue. Okay, so that's how the replication works. That's how the product works. And you can see here the operation of the product it's not complex, and everything you had in the source server is going to be replicated to the target server in the same time. I'm going to just keep here this option because I have already a job created, okay, for us to see how it works, okay? And let me simulate that for you here, okay? Imagine I add a server here, just a simple file, okay? I add a simple file here, okay? Let me see. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just a very simple thing for you to see the replication happen in real time. Okay, and I go to the location, okay, of the staging folder. Remember, you are going to replicate one-to-one directly. What I'm doing here, you don't have staging folder, okay, because you are going to do just data replication. Okay, so yeah. So I have the file here, in the same time. If I go there in the source server and I delete that file, okay, and I go there and it's a disk operation, I go to the target side, and the target side has the file is not there anymore. So is how the replication works. It's a real-time replication, and everything you do is going to be replicated at the same time. Okay, so
one
any
quick
question?
question. Yeah. Is it going to copy the permissions also?
Yes, it's going to copy all the permissions with the file. Okay, and we send the permissions and the shares and everything else with that file, so everything goes together.
And how about the metadata when it looks like when we are migrating or doing a copy or mirroring whatever the file used by database, it should not copy that file, but it should have some during the cutover, it should have some metadata. So is it going to copy that metadata at the last moment?
Yes, it's going to copy the metadata too, without any problem.
Okay.
And it's very straight and simple here. Of course, there are some best practices you have to apply to make sure that everything is okay. And as I mentioned before, our professional services team is in the line too. If you want to, if he wants to talk to something related to this process here, Derek, you want to do some? You want to talk something about this migration? Best practices you guys apply when you are developing production environments?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Cristiano. There's really not a whole lot to add, other than just understand at the core of the product, the design is to move data from one location to another. So it could be the same server, it could be a different server, it could be physical, virtual, or cloud. It's still moving data from one location to another. So when you're doing an in-house, SAN replacement, something like that, it's really just a matter of adding the new volumes to the cluster or the server, creating jobs between the old volumes and the new volumes, and at cutover, stopping the application, removing the old volumes, and then renaming the new ones to the old volumes names. So it's a fairly straightforward process. It's a little more difficult with clusters because there are some mechanisms behind clustering that you have to deal with, dependencies and those kind of things. But at the real core of it, a data migration on the same server from disk to disk is one of the basic foundations of the product.
Yes, thank you, Derek. That's I decided to just ask some tips from Derek because he's on the field all the time installing that process and configuring migration, doing migration as a service. That's one of the products. That's one of the options we have. So just for your information, we are very skilled in this kind of migration.
Is it a block level replication?
Sorry, can you say again?
Is it a block level replication? So it replicates by blocks?
No, it's a byte level replication. The process starts with a mirror, as I told you, starts with a mirror. The mirror is a block level mirror, okay? Because we just want to finish soon. But after that, the byte level replication, it's how we work. So that's a good thing because you don't have blocks sent over. And if you have any latency problems in the connection, you're going to be okay with the byte level applications. For us, we work with high latency as well. So
I'm just asking because if you would like to replicate database files, for example, we start the migration on Monday, and we need to finish it on the weekend. Then yeah, so the process should be, in case if I understand correctly, we should stop the database engine, wait for the replication and the mirroring is in sync, and after this we can perform a cutover.
Yeah. So one of the things to understand is with our product and replication, it's a real-time byte level asynchronous replication. So replication is occurring all the time. There is no final sync when the job has mirror completed. So we've synchronized all of the base data. At that point, we're just sending real-time data changes. Okay, that cutover can happen at any time. There's no stop the application and wait for a final sync, hours, whatever. It's right now. So the data is always up to date. The data is always prepared for cutover. Now, if you're migrating databases and SQL things like that, and we're talking about disk to disk migrations, you have to stop SQL, right? Because you're going to be removing disks and those things. So I would stop SQL, but our replication is going to be within seconds of being updated. So it is a real-time scenario. That's why our cutover times in our migration windows are so small. There are some workflows that the migration window is less than 5 minutes. And that's an entire end user experience.
Yeah.
But how can we show if it is about byte level replication or local level replication, and we don't stop the database? How can we sure on that the file on the other side will be consistent?
So part of how
you mean the database? I mean the database works with transactions, and it's a byte level replication. So yeah, so how can we sure on that the database file will be consistent and not broken?
Yeah, so for the 25 years we've been in business doing this, that's really been the key of our sequential transfer methodology. So everything is captured through our patented kernel filter driver that actually captures everything in a transactionally consistent state and replicates it in a transactionally consistent state. So once that mirror is complete, all transactions are sent over as they occur.
Oh, so it can handle the transactions inside the file.
It absolutely, that's where we capture all the data. We're not watching the disk, we're actually watching the kernel.
Yeah.
And we capture data out of the kernel. And that's how we can do real time, and that's how we're byte level versus block level. We're not watching disk blocks. We're an installed agent, so we're actually working inside the OS.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a doubt. So just assume that we have 2 disks in a Windows cluster, 2-node environment, and the drive D I want to replace with the drive Z. So is your tool will take care of at the cutover replacing the drive letters and the drives in the Windows cluster also?
No, that's something that has to be manually done. Unfortunately, we don't plug into the OS to start changing disk clutters and those. Not to mention with clustering, you not only have to bring the disk resources offline, you have to remove them, you have to change dependencies. There's no way we could code that because every cluster could be slightly different. And then you have to re-add dependencies back in. So there are things that have to be done manually just by dealing with clusters a little bit unique. So you would have to do that. And the same thing with a standalone. You would have to remove the D drive and change the Z to a D and restart disk administrator.
Okay. So then my second doubt would be, so that means we have to first add the target drives to the cluster, and then your tool able to detect the drives, and we have to configure mirroring from the source drive to the target drive. So is there any difference in using your tool between VMs and physical machines?
No difference. It works exactly the same. Remember, it's a Windows level replication. So we don't touch in the base. We don't talk with the base. We don't talk with the hardware, or even we don't talk with the hypervisor. We just go directly to the Windows server that you are migrating to, or the cluster server you are migrating to the target server.
Got you. So, yeah. So basically, if you are not replacing any disk in the cluster manager, that means you are not dealing with anything beyond Windows layer. Okay, I got your point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at the time of first installing this tool, does it require any restart?
No, does not.
Scanning of disks? No, nothing. No downtime.
No, it's just install and start using. And the installation takes between 5 to 6 minutes to complete. And is everything in the same package? If you it's everything there. You don't need to install additional components. It's just the installation of the replication agent, and that's all.
And the what about the console? Where need to run the console?
Yeah, we recommend to have a console to orchestrate this migration. Okay, you can see here in my screen, I have just one management server. I call management server with my console, and I don't have replication to this server. So it's just a console. It's a simple server, okay, with low resources, and you have the console there because the console is going to query the XML file that's in the target server. So it's a very passive console here. There's no data to this console. Okay, remember the replication straight one-to-one point source to the target.
Okay, so we need a separate machine for this console.
We recommend to. If you don't have, you can use your target server as a console for that. There's no problems with that. But we recommend to have a third machine. That can be a Windows 8.1 or Windows 10 as well.
Okay.
For a data migration, it doesn't matter. It can be any of the servers. When it becomes critical to have a separate console machine is when you're doing an entire server migration. That way, all the processes can be executed without interfering with either the server being migrated or the server being migrated to.
And only the agents needs a license, so the console is license free.
No, the console is free, and only the source server is going to need a license. The target server, you still install the same thing as you install in the source side. However, you skip the screen that asks for the activation code. You just bypass that screen.
Okay.
Okay, that means we have two components in this tool, console and agent. So if we don't have a separate mission, we have to install both on the same server where we are targeting for migration. Am I right?
Yes. When you are installing the product, of course, you have to select the Migrate product, and after you have to read the EULA and accept that terms. Okay, the next option is asking what you want to install. Client components, server components, client plus server components. You just go and select client plus server components, and then we are going to install the full package in that target server, and you can orchestrate the job from there as well.
Suppose if I have a 2-node cluster, do I need to install all these components on both the cluster?
Yes, you need to install both agents in both nodes of the cluster and add to the console the cluster name. You still have to add the source server, the nodes in the console, but you need to install the cluster name as well, because we are going to create a resource inside of the cluster to replicate from that shared storage to the destination. So it's more a cluster operation too.
Okay, so that means if I configure a replication between drive D to Z on some day, some 10th of this month, and if I have a failover on 12th, so does it gonna handle the same? I mean, like how Windows cluster handles. I mean, like how Windows clusters move the resource from node 1 to node 2. Is your console also able to handle that situation?
It's more like a data migration. At this point, as soon as you add that that cluster name to the console, we are going to work like it was a standalone server. Okay, you still have to do the path mapping, change the drive D to the drive Z, for example, or the drive you mentioned ladder, like I forgot some drive E to the drive Z. You still have to do this path mapping, okay, but for example, if your target server has the drive Z, is going to be the data drive. So all you have to do is create a job straight to the informing the path mapping from the source ladder to the target server.
Yeah, but my doubt is actually I'm not moving data from one server to another server. I have one cluster which have 2 nodes. I'm moving data from drive D to drive E. So I would like to replace after the cutover drive E with the drive D. Okay, so my cutover is on 15th of this month, and I have started migration. I have started initial migration on 10th. So in between 12th, because at the time of configuring this mirroring from your console, all the services and the drives are on node 1, but on 12th, a failover happened to node 2. So
yeah, so I think that was the key of what Cristiano was saying is when you configure it and you put the migration on all nodes of the cluster and you add the cluster name into the console versus a node name, it will create a cluster-based job. So you'll actually see new resources inside of the failover cluster manager. So if it would move from node 1 to node 2, the migration job would move from node 1 to node 2 as well.
Got you. Thank you.
And continue that. So it's really all about how you set it up. If you use the premium migration that has the capabilities of creating a cluster aware job, then we can create a cluster aware job. If you use just a standard license and install on a single node, we won't create a cluster aware job. So if it moves, the migration job will break. Okay. Another point to make is the console is just a user interface. The console doesn't actually do anything other than let you see the status of the jobs and send commands to the service. So all of the work and the processing is actually done on the server itself in communication to the other server. So the console is just a view into the job and sends commands, but it doesn't actually perform any tasks.
Okay, got you. So that means there is no need or necessary to be the source and target drive should be on the same node if we configure migration job cluster level. So
they will have to be, right? Because when you add the disks, it will have to be added into the application group of the cluster for it to be seen. So you have to, it has to be on the same node and it has to be added as a cluster disk to get a signature and be seen inside of the cluster group, the application group.
yes, I got you. So, but my doubt is like we will add to the failover cluster, Windows failover cluster, but new drives will be in the available state, whereas the old drives already attached to SQL Server. So in this case, a failover happens, only SQL Server services will go to the node 2, whereas available resource can stay or might stay on the node 1. So that's the key.
So let me be clear again. The disks have to be added to the application group. So you will see a D drive for SQL, and you will see a Z drive, that's the new drive, inside of the SQL group.
Got you. Now it's clear.
It cannot be left in available storage because you can't write to them. At that point, I can't go from D to Z because D cannot see Z unless it is inside of the same group. That's how clustering works.
Okay, so more than adding the drive to Windows cluster, we need to add the SQL inside SQL cluster as well.
To the application group, correct.
Okay, I got you. So just to know, what would be the migration speed?
So you mentioned that both servers are in the same, you just a storage migration, right? You have the same connect and the same. And how big is the data you have? How big is the data you have on the volumes you are trying to migrate to?
Basically, we are targeting to use this tool to migrate around 3 to 4 TB of drives.
Sorry, I lost the size.
3 to 4 TB.
Okay.
So just a overview on like how much speed it would be, like copy speed it would be.
Well, understand that there's a lot of variables that go into what we call mirror speed, right? It's going to be the available resources on the disk, the amount of delta that's going on, if there are bandwidth contention, things like that. We usually say about a terabyte or 1 TB every 12 hours is what we move. So keep in mind, the users are running the whole time. Changes are happening the whole time. So even if it takes a few days to synchronize, there's no impact.
Yes. So how much resource it might use from the server Like what would be the resource utilization of this tool at the time of copying, suppose a 1 TB data, so CPU and the memory wise?
Usually it's 2 to 3% CPU, and we require 1 gigabyte of memory.
Okay.
And is it sensitive if we limit the process utilization for 2 CPU or 3 CPU or 4? Is it sensitive for that?
We cannot throttle CPU. The OS is going to handle priority.
Yeah, I mean from the OS, we limit the resource of this process from the task manager, for example, to 3 or 4 CPUs.
Because of the threading, everything will run on processor 0.
Okay. And is it sensitive? Is there a limit for the file amount of files? I mean, sometimes we should migrate data cubes as well, where we have hundreds and thousands XML files. Is there any limit for this small files?
There's no limit. Obviously, the more files, and certainly if there's millions and millions of small files, the mirror process may take longer. And really, again, it's about the rate of change on those that come into play on that. But there theoretically are no size limits, and there are no number limits of files. It's very common for us to move servers with hundreds of billions of files, and the largest data set I've moved is 62 petabytes.
See. Okay.
Okay. And does this also handle, suppose if we have Windows image file, I mean like a temporary file configured to that particular drive, does this tool handles that as well?
Yes, it handles image files without any problem.
So that means, does it excludes the file, or is it tries to copy that as well?
You can exclude too. When you are setting up the migration, the data migration, there's an option there. You say the replication rules, and you can exclude files or add files to the include and exclude rules. I mean, you exclude image files or some other files you want to exclude. That's pretty available there.
Can you show us a cutover? How can we sure that everything is sync and how the cutover work?
The cutover is all you have to do here is the data migration. Okay, when you are ready with the replication, when you see the status of the job like green being protected, and all you have to see. Let me share with you here. Okay, when you have this green status here, the next thing you have to pay attention is very important here is the replication queue, and the disk queue must be 0. Okay, cannot be 1, cannot be 0.1, cannot be 0.001, needs to be 0. Okay, that means if you have something different than 0 here, means that you have something that was not, for some reason, hasn't been transferred. Okay, so when you have this job here done, okay, all you have to do is delete the job and go to your target server, go to the source server, go to your environment and rename the ladders, disconnect the old storage. As Derek mentioned, you have to shut down the SQL services or some other cluster application you have there, and rename the license, rename the ladder, rename the drives, and start the application again. That's the only thing you have to do. Remember, that's not a full server migration. That's not a full server. That's not another kind of migration. It's just a simple data migration.
Okay, so if we use it in a case of we have a running SQL server, then this queue or application queue should contain a number in a big percent of the cases. But if we shut down it will go on. And if the bot is 0, we can stop this process.
Yes, yeah.
We can start the cutover.
Yeah, exactly. If you have something different than 0 here, the first thing you have to do is go there and shut down the application, okay, and wait for that to be 0. Okay, you cannot go ahead and delete the job, you know, with something different than 0.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
It's you know, it's as we said here, it's just a simple data migration that you are doing. It's you know, there's no major procedures to be done here when you do the cutover itself.
Yeah, I just asked that because of I was curious where can we see that the migration is finished, or there is no running data transfer in the background. But yeah, we can see that here.
I didn't understand your question. I'm sorry.
So I'm asked that because of I was curious, how can we see that the data transfer is still running or everything is sync? So, but we can see that from this screen in the console. So if everything is 0, I mean these 2 volumes, then we are good, and everything is in sync.
You know, here's my source server. Here's my target server, right? All I have to do here is, you know, I'm gonna create a file here. Is I created that already, but I'm gonna create again, and just
if we try it with a smaller, with a bigger file, for example, 4 GB or 10 GB or whatever, we will see that it is syncing it from the console.
Yeah.
With these values.
Not sure if I have a big file here. Hold on a second, please. Let me just send this file. That's 150 meg. It's okay.
That was an image file in a quick access. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, it's a file with like you know, 153 megabytes. Okay, let's back here, you know, and go to the console. And you know, was already transferred because it's just a move, but you know, it's done. It's replicated. If you go to the target server here, you're going to see the file already there. That was your question?
Yeah. Thank you.
You know, it's actually it's just pretty much real time.
Okay, there was an image file under the quick access, if I saw that.
Mm-hmm.
Can we try it with the image file? It's a bigger one.
You want me to transfer a biggest file? Let me
yeah. Terabytes. So sorry, gigabytes, for example. 1 or 2 GBs if you have.
Let's see if I have it here. So I have to bring something from my console. Hold on a second, please. Let's see if I have some. Make it there. Let me see something. Hold on a second.
If you don't have, doesn't matter. So okay, we see how does it work. So.
Yeah, and I have one more question. So, do we need to take care anything from antivirus side? So, do we need to exclude files, or is there any suggestion from your side?
Can you? I'm not sure if I understand your question. Can you say again, please?
Typically, you'll exclude our executable, our service, and our working directory, or set us to a no-risk process. So So it just depends on what type of antivirus you're using. But yes, you will need to set some type of exclusion for us because antivirus actually sits above us in the Windows kernel, and it will filter everything we send. And antivirus kernel drivers are slower than ours.
Okay, so that means it actually won't stop the whole thing, but it will slow down the migration process.
It will bring the migration process to a crawl.
Okay.
Antivirus is the biggest problem that we have when sending data.
Okay, so Vivek, could you please try to ask like what the settings we have to do if we have to use this because from the antivirus level you might be much more technically good than me.
I mean, in general, we'll just add in the exception. I don't know, for this tool, we need to exclude from client AV.
You know, from in the antivirus side, you know, all you have to do is create an exclusion for the Carbonite replication queues inside of the inside of the software. So we, of course, will create a folder inside of the installation system called source. Okay, and all you have to do is create an exclusion for that queue. Okay, because the way we handle files, the antivirus can keep like thinking that something's wrong. Okay. With the last versions of the product, we have a very good handshaking with antivirus, but you know we still ask you to exclude the the replication queues from that from the real-time scan. Okay, so we have a KBA too that describes everything, the operation and antivirus that you can access during the installation of the product.
Okay, we use McAfee, VSC.
Yeah, as I say, you know, we have a very good handshaking, especially in the last versions of the product. So probably you don't need to do anything, but if you want to just be proactive during the installation of the product, I recommend to exclude the Carbonite queues from the real-time scan, just to avoid any problem with replication breaking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so as per still discussion, I can understand this tool doesn't have any limitation with OS or whatever the application running on top of the drives it is involving for migration. Am I right?
Yes, you are right. There is no problems with the application installed on that server. Absolutely no problems. We work at kernel level in that Windows server. So for us, doesn't matter what you have installed there. We are going to just read and replicate and mirror the files you add to that replication set.
Okay, so any limitations on the OS versions? I feel like as per the discussion, it might work from 2010 Windows.
Yeah, you know, if you have like a Windows 2008 R2 and the latest versions up to Windows 2019, you know, like it's pretty straightforward installation. If you have Windows 2003, needs to use a previous version of the product, okay, but it's the same styles, the same configurations, the same way to create the jobs, and the same way to handle all the activities.
Yeah, and the current version is useful from 2008 to 2019. Am I correct?
Yes, 2008 R2.
Okay, yeah, 2008 R2 to 2009. Okay,
yes.
Got you. Okay, so these are all doubts I have from Windows level drive level migration. I would let maybe Vivek or some of my colleagues to ask if they have
Maybe we'll definitely will have a lot of questions, you know, once we start using. So how do we start using this one? Like, are you going to share the location where we can download the software and try ourselves?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, just as a question, looks like this call initiated because you guys are interested in do a proof of concept or evaluation, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Correct.
Okay, good. I'm gonna work internally here with Lars in order to create some, the code for the trial code. Okay, and also you might receive from me a code, a link to download the software, a link for the libraries, and a link for the video library too. And this video you can just watch and see how the migrations work. It's just a step by step of the migration steps.
So there is a question from Ashish. He's asking, is this migration copy the permission also?
Yes, it copies the permissions well. Permission shares. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we also have the same project might be, I mean, like already running on Linux also with where MySQL running on top of it. So I have Victor Philop from MySQL DB team. So I would let him to talk on that in Linux prospects. So Victor.
Yes, I'm here. Sid, what are the questions?
Not actually questions. Like I just want to you also to step in to see if this explanation or whatever we discussed is clear to go and use the same tool for Linux XIO migration as well.
Yes, I guess we are not really used tools for XMIO. We did the migrations with downtime.
Yeah, correct.
With the different mounts and copy the data. We didn't use the possibility for the logical volume manager. We just did it with downtime. So I think as it's a well tried process, we can do the same.
Okay, so if we have to use the same tool for Linux drive migration also, you are clear now.
Yes, we can do it.
Okay.
So you don't use you do migrations with Linux with downtime. That's what I understand. That.
Yes, we did additional mount points, closed the blockers, mostly for the MySQL database, and did the copy with rsync or with the simple cp command. And after it, we changed the mount points and restarted the database and decommissioned the original mounts. So that was the process.
And how long is the downtime for that? I mean, just curious here. You 3 hours, right?
Yes, hours. For the biggest databases like GEM, which can count in terabytes, it was almost the whole change window. But in the worst case, we would be able to do the failover and failback and do the migrations online on the standby side, on the slave side. But it always fit in the change window, so they didn't have to do this workaround. That was the process.
You need to try Carbonite Migrate for that. You're gonna love that. No downtime. Just go ahead and do the failover, and that's done. I mean,
first, I also advised for the team to do the migration with the logical volume manager because all the file systems were on logical volumes, but they wanted it with the downtime and the cp command. So I let it. But it sounds good. Anyway.
Okay, so I'm gonna work internally here with Lars, and in order to, you might have to sign something. It's like a scope of work, just in order to have authorization to generate the codes here. Just a simple document. Okay, we're going to send you for sign up, and from that, I'm going to work with Lars to create the activation code for you, plus the link to download the software, and when you're installing, if you are any roadblock or if you need our assistance, please let us know. The POC, it's totally covered by support as well, just for your information.
Yeah, Cristiano. So, sorry, just before that, I want to discuss about one more phase of it. So still now we asked about the disk level. So suppose if we want to migrate a whole server, so how it will handle. So that also would like to know. Suppose let's assume we have a C drive for for a server XYZ, and we have another server ABC. So the C drive storage license has been expired, and we want to migrate the C drive. So along with the OS, it might be not be the valid question. I don't know, but I'm just throwing out. So if we have any answer for that.
Okay, when you are doing, we are talking about standalone servers, right? We are not talking about clustered servers, correct?
We have a cluster problem also like that. At present, we have one of the clustered one node C drive storage got expired, and for only replacing that C drive storage, now we are planning to migrate the whole server. So we just want to know if with this tool, if we have any other solution.
Well, for standalone servers, you can do the full server migration. That's one of our more popular ways to migrate a server, because we are going to stage the drive C, okay, in a folder inside the drive C in the destination server, and we are going to migrate one-to-one the data drives. For example, drive D, E, F. You're going to see that drive going straight forward to the final destination. We stage the drive C as well, because during the time you have the replication, the mirror happening and the replication happening, that means before the cutover itself, if you do something at hot fixes for the Windows, you replicate these hot fixes too. So we cannot apply to that server, okay, because you have the Windows running in the target server. However, if you when you do the cutover, okay, we just move the contents of the staging folder, we apply the system state, reboot the server, and the migration is totally completed. So it's like a maximum 10 minutes of downtime and you are good to go. But we replicate the drive C, we replicate everything. Same thing for Linux too. We do the same concept for Linux, except for we stage all the volumes for Linux instead of just the boot volume like we do for Windows.
Okay, so is the target server, suppose if we are moving from X to Y, so is the Y server, if we are migrating the C drive, is that needs to be installed with any operating systems, or is it the very, I mean, like how it have to be the target system should be?
Yeah, so there's a couple options. So I'll jump in, Cristiano. So
thanks, my friend.
What we talked about before was what we call files and folders, or a data migration. What we're talking about now is what we call a full server migration, and we have a couple options. So what Cristiano was talking about is our kind of more of a universal any-to-any type migration, where I can move any Windows or Linux server from physical, virtual, or cloud to any environment, physical, virtual, or cloud. The key is there is a running OS. It's not bare metal. So there just has to be a base OS and the disks available. Now, what that allows us to do is I can move from Dell hardware to HP hardware. I can move from an IBM server to cloud to Azure. I can move from Azure to AWS. I can move from AWS to Hyper-V. I can move from Hyper-V back to physical. So it really becomes an any-to-any, but we do have to have that same base OS installed on that. Now, we have some workflows that are specific to Hyper-V and VMware, where the software will provision the new VM. So there's a couple different ways. It just really depends on where you're going. If we're talking about migrating into Azure, yes, we'll need to have that base server built, to have that base OS running on it, and that's very quick to provision, but it has to have that OS there.
Okay, got you. Thank you. Thanks for clearing that out. Okay, so these are all the questions I have. Thank you very much for your patience of answering all these questions. And
Thank you.
what I gonna do next is like I will provide, like, along with all the colleagues who ever joined from my team, we will provide our feedback to our manager, like who will be the point of contact as a Vijay, and he will come in contact with you guys about the trial versions, whatever we requested here, and all those things. So you can start discussing with legally or whatever required at that moment with our manager.
Okay, sounds good. And I will wait to hear from VJ. I will go ahead and send the recording out to everyone on the call, or everyone included on the calendar invite, and that way you'll be able to distribute that internally. And then when I hear from VJ with intent to download the trial and get going, I'll send him it's a statement of work, basically just kind of outlines the $0 trial license, how long it's good for, etc. Once he signs that, then we'll get the evaluation licenses out, and we can tee up a follow-up call with Cristiano. He can help you with that proof of concept.
Sure. Yeah. Coming to the license part, like Vijay will come in touch and he will discuss. But before that, we were asked to discuss technically here and to provide our feedback about this tool. So based on that, he will take decision and he will go forward.
Terrific. Are there any other questions, or do you guys have all of your boxes checked?
Yeah, from my side, it's pretty clear. I got all the answers what I want to. So I have still Victor here. So Victor, do you have anything else?
I have nothing at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, well, it's been nice talking to everyone. So I will send the copy of the recording out shortly, and we'll be in touch soon. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lon.
Yep.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, colleagues.
Yeah,
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.